This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by the Intake Academy. Do you know how to cement relationships with more of your ideal clients, get them to commit to you, and send you more referrals than you ever thought possible? Visit www.intakeacademy.com, where you will get the strategies you need to make the most of your marketing and advertising dollars. Plus, develop a team of intake specialists and attorneys who convert more qualified case opportunities and build meaningful relationships with prospective clients. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I'm going to be interviewing Emanuel Galimidi, and I'm going to let Emanuel tell you a little bit about himself.
Hi. So my name is Emanuel Galimidi, as you astutely pointed out. I'm a personal injury attorney in Miami, Florida. I've been practicing about 20 years. I'm a former insurance defense lawyer / commercial litigator, representing corporations, manufacturers, designers for the vast majority of my career, and then recently changed over and only represent plaintiffs.
Okay, got it. So what happened that made you make that decision to kind of switch over?
I guess two parts. One, I was seeing a lot of folks that were, quite frankly, not receiving the best representation that I thought they could get, and would end up at the end of a case not all that well off, even if there happen to be liability on the defense side. And on a couple of unrelated matters, I assisted a plaintiff's attorney on cases where I didn't have a conflict, and kind of saw how that progressed from that side of the window, let's say, a little more closely than I would, just simply on the other side of the V in any particular case. And I saw how, after those cases resolved, how grateful the plaintiffs were, just to have an opportunity to kind of, restart their lives after a smaller accident, but the other one that I'm thinking about after a much larger accident. And it helped to get this individual kind of back on her feet and moving forward again, which was gratifying. And so kind of all of that melding together, said to me, I think I need to make a switch.
Okay, so everything that you just shared with me and the way you shared it with me, like you were passionate. So my question is, how do you instill that same level of urgency and concern and passion to your team?
Well, I don't think you do anything. I think people have it or they don't.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the way that I've always gone about hiring folks is, and it's a lesson that I learned is, well, I'll tell you the story and then the lesson will make sense. For a number of years at my prior firm, I had, one or two like A+ players, let's say, just fantastic. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if and I need to hire another person. I said, okay, if I just get myself like a B+ player, if you will, wow, then I'm complete. I'm just looking for this, and the rest of it will kind of take care of itself because I already have these superstars. So I went about hiring B+ people, or maybe even C+, depending on the hiring need and how quickly I needed somebody to come on board. And every time I did that, it was a total failure. Not because the people ended up being D's or F's, let's say, but because they were, in fact, what as advertised, B's, C+. And I realized that just wasn't ever going to get it done because of the word you used, the urgency. That just wasn't really ever going to be there. And it's not something that I could ever instill in someone. You either have a sense of urgency, a dedication, a focus, or you don't. You can never, at least in my experience, you can't coach someone up in that regard. Maybe other folks can, I cannot. So I said to myself, okay, I need to change my mindset on this. And so the thought was, I'm only going to hire A+ players. Now you don't know offhand whether they're going to be or they're not, but I looked for someone that was going to be great. And 50% of the time, maybe more, I struck out and it was just an awful fit, but then I got rid of that person quickly. And if it was a great fit, they stuck around. So anyway, so to answer your question, you either have it or you don't. But what you can do is once you do identify people that have that level of focus, that level of urgency, you nurture that by giving them some level of autonomy as they earn it, and giving them a sense of ownership, and requesting and welcoming and implementing their feedback. And that part of it is really, I think, as a leader, having a sense of humility that's saying, look, I may have some good ideas, but I may not have the best idea.
Right.
And if you have the best idea, let's go with that. And I really don't care who comes up with it, because at the end of the day, the client benefits. If the client benefits, the team benefits. And frankly, for myself, I benefit, period.
Right. So let me ask you this. What's your process for identifying the individuals that you really want?
I think a couple of things. One is their background before. So let's say we're discussing an attorney. Is their background before law school? Because during law school, unless someone is top of their class, and even that sort of thing for me doesn't make that much of a difference. But everyone's resumes generally look the same. But I'm curious as to what you were like in college.
Yeah.
Did you, for example, did your parents own a store or some sort of a shop or something? Did you work there for since you were 5 years old? That is important, because that's again that sense of ownership, that sense of responsibility that you were taught well before I came into the picture. So I look for those sorts of things. And what were you like before law school? Because once law school hits, everyone's resumes tend to look the same.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And I think what you said a little while ago about implementing some of the ideas, that part there is key, because I think maybe a lot of leaders, owners will, get ideas from their team, but I'm not really confident that they actually execute on them. It was like, oh, that's a really great idea. Great. All right. So we talked about it this week, move on to the next week. Right. So you doing that, I think that is that's the really good thing right there. That's the positive. And so let's see, I'm looking at my notes over here. You were at your previous firm for, it was like 16 years.
Yeah, that's right.
So what happened that you stayed that long? That's a long time. That's a good thing, but it's a long time.
It is a very long time. And when you say it, it sounds even longer. But I think it was part, just a aligning of the stars to some degree, because there were a lot of different lawyers kind of joined the firm around the same time. The firm at the time that I joined at least was maybe a dozen lawyers, give or take. And, let's say somewhere between 6 to 10 lawyers, all from different backgrounds, kind of joined, similar ages, all joined, within a year or two of each other. And I made incredible friendships as a result of that. And we all kind of had different backgrounds, but kind of cut from the same cloth. And the vast majority of us stayed, for 5, 6, 8, 10 years, 12 years. 1, 2, actually, that I'm thinking of now I believe are still there. So the culture that existed for such a long time was a large part of what kept me there. Because I was able to grow and to flourish and to really develop my skills, and to be part of the growth of the firm. And by the time I left, I think the firm was about 100 lawyers. So I think that people throw around the word culture a lot, and it's not just like donuts and pizza, whatever, every month or whatever it is to boost morale. It's really the relationships and the people you're in the foxhole with. And I was fortunate enough to develop so many great relationships that in large part kept me there.
Right. And so when you talk about the whole idea about culture and everything, I think that's just like another shiny object. And but how we treat our team internally is ultimately how they treat each other.
Yes.
So that also takes care of either retention or not.
Yeah.
Attitude or not, really wanting to do a good job or not. But then also it also takes care of how they communicate with prospective clients and clients. How you are teaching them and treating them is how they're going to treat everybody else. So that's really important there. So it says a lot. And to me, culture has a lot to do with empathy. really. So
Yeah.
empathy from the top down, team member
Yes.
to team member. Do you really care about what you just said to me or what you're about to say to me? Or are you just going to
Yeah.
say it or not say it? Right.
Yeah.
The whole, and those little, like little hinges swing big doors, right? So those little moments can they can make everything amazing, or they can oh no.
I've never heard that little hinges swing big doors. I'm gonna steal that for a long
Yeah,
time.
it's not mine. It's Clement.
Okay, I've
Yeah,
never heard
yeah,
of that.
yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I use it a lot, but I'm gonna guess that the firm that you were at for 16 years, they taught you everything that you're doing now.
Yes, in large part,
Yeah,
I learned a lot of what was important. In
yeah,
building, kind of my own team at the time, and now as I grow my personal injury practice.
yeah. That's wonderful. I mean, that's fortunate, really fortunate.
Yeah,
And how
agreed.
many attorneys do you have right now? Are you the only attorney, or do you have
Yes, just myself for now.
Okay, and how many folks do you have with intake?
Just a couple of vendors that I use virtually that
Okay,
handle my reception and medical record retrieval, that sort of
yeah,
thing. I'm trying to keep it as lean as I can.
okay, yeah. Now, what about balance?
What
So
does that
how do
mean?
you balance? Well, come on, balance, right? So how do you do it? Balancing
Um,
your career and your personal life.
uh, Exercise. That's what works for me. I
Mm-hmm,
try at least, yeah, probably once a day. I do something, and something may just simply be a 30-minute walk around my neighborhood.
mm-hmm.
Because I've noticed the days that I don't, I'm very irritable, and things are kind of I start to get overwhelmed by the end of the day with the different
Yeah,
tasks. So, to answer your question, it's for me, it's that, and it's also knowing that at the end of this road, this first phase, there will be a full-time assistant. There will then be, depending on the level of lawyer that I hire, there will be that person. So it's knowing that I'm taking the steps necessary now for this phase to end where I'm not just doing all the admin, all the marketing, all the discovery,
yeah.
pleadings, etc. That this phase will end. So I try and keep myself, balance, to use your word, by
Mhm.
getting some fresh air and knowing that I'm taking the steps necessary to to get myself to be in a position where I can then begin delegating, at least to some degree.
Okay. So the other thing is, I'll ask you this question. Why did you become a lawyer? What happened? What was that? What was that all about right there?
So I didn't really I never really set out to do it. It wasn't something that I wanted to do as a little kid or anything like that. I was passionate and very involved in high school debate. But even then I wasn't thinking to myself, I want to be a lawyer. I went to college, tried a business with a close friend of mine. Kind of didn't really work out, but it taught us both a tremendous amount. And
Mm-hmm.
and then as we were both graduating, I think he knew he was going to law school, and I think at the time I was probably going to go because I didn't know what else to do with myself.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so I said, okay, I'm going to go, and I applied to one school. I got in, fortunately, and then it just kind of just started to take off and really
Okay.
enjoy the process. And that was kind of it. So I wish I had some big, you
No,
know, I walked up to the Supreme Court and I saw that none of that
no,
happened.
but you had these deep discussions with your parents over dinner, right? They
Nothing
made
like
you do
that.
a debate in the.
No, but it ultimately it made sense for me. It's just one of those things where I think I wasn't consciously going in that direction, but every other decision I was making was leading to that.
Okay, okay. All right. So the other question you have is what is most important trait for a litigator?
Mm. Uh, Very easy. Learn how to make friends. And because the reality is, um, I can't even count the number of times that I've called up someone and said, "Hey, do you know so and so?" Oh, sure. Blah blah blah. Can you get me in contact with this other person? Great.
Mm-hmm.
Can you introduce me to this prospective client? Do you know so and so? And all of these um, asks, for lack of a better word, come out of a friendship where I've been there for people, they've been there for me, and in litigation, which is as I'm sure you know, adversarial, right? By definition, where sometimes the client's not happy, the judge is upset with you, you know, and the only person that you can actually commiserate with to some degree is opposing counsel. And if you can learn how to, you know, be friendly with people, it sounds obvious, but for a lot of people who go to law school to really get after it, they don't understand that that's kind of 10% of it.
Yeah.
The other 90% is relationships. And the better you are at handling and developing relationships, the less you'll need that 10%. And that's how you actually have a long, I think, fulfilling career, is by making friendships, by developing relationships, so that your life isn't simply attack in
Right.
terms of a litigator. So I think that's the most important, because it'll keep you from being aggravated all the time. And I see a lot of lawyers that are like that, and they
Right.
have, yeah, they do fine, but they're just upset all the time. And that's
Right.
typically because they don't have a ton of friends, you know, in the community.
Yeah, and I would imagine law school doesn't really teach about relationships.
No, it's the opposite. It's competing for grades, competing for law school, competing for moot court, which is important. Competition is at the heart of what we do. But the people who really get it understand that, yes, you compete, but you're also, you know, willing to help people out, because A, it's the right thing to do, and B, you don't know when you're going to need a hand down the road.
Right, 100%. Don't burn your bridges.
No.
Um, so that would be a great question to ask applicants. People that get to a certain step in the process. You could do an oral, or you could do a written, and have them tell you, how do you build relationships? Like, and see
Yeah.
what they say. Well, I don't know. I kind of just hang out. But how do you build relationships? And give me the top 3 relationships that you have right now that you've maintained for more than 1 year. Things like that. I think that would be really great.
Yeah.
Great questions to kind of ask. Speaking about that, what do you think about remote? How do you feel about having a remote team? And do you have a remote team?
Yes, I do. And yes, I have. And I'm fine with it, generally speaking. Okay, so I can just draw on the example from my prior firm, where the team I had, some folks who were remote. One staff member in particular I can think of was 100% remote, but she had also been with me as a paralegal for, I think, 5 or 6 years. So she's fantastic. I mean, I trust her to this day. I think she's an excellent paralegal. So yeah, I don't have a problem with someone being remote that way. Other, younger lawyers, I'm not nuts about it, fully remote, because I think you need that face to face. And I think that there's something to be said about walking 7 feet to my office, let's say, knocking on the door, saying, "Do you have a minute?" And me
Yeah,
answering the question, and then
right.
maybe
Yeah.
just talking about their weekend or whatever's going on, and kind of feeling them out if they're stressed about something, and kind of getting that out and seeing what the real underlying issue is. You're not going to get any of that over remote. So I think young lawyers really suffer if it's fully remote. But I understand 4 days in the office, 1 day remote, or whatever it is. And again, as people earn trust, they earn perks like that. I think that's just kind of a normal way to proceed with someone. But so to answer your question, I'm good with remote, but it's kind of hard at the beginning for younger lawyers, I would say, because of the trust issue, and they don't realize what they're missing out by not being literally next to you.
Yeah, right. I like that too. I agree with that. It's the whole way you said it. They can't just walk into my office and just, because that tells you a lot, right? What questions they're asking, what their mannerisms are, what their body language is. Are they
Exactly.
feeling, I mean, it could tell you a gazillion things at that particular moment. But I think a lot of law firms right now, remote is like that other shiny object, and everybody feels like it's the silver bullet, like, oh, if I just had a remote, okay, I'll just have a whole remote team. If I do that, everything will be better, because
Yeah.
it's like the big buzz right now. And what do you think about that?
I think that they're looking at it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
From the mega firms in Manhattan to the wherever else in Chicago or LA, etc. Because the reason that people that already work there are so reluctant about remote, rather about being in person, most of the time they don't want to be around you. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So if they don't want to be around you, of course they're going to want to be remote. Now, of course, that, that with the caveat of some people drive a long distance and so on and so forth. But those folks, if they want to be around you and they like going into the office because they like the environment, not just, the donuts every third Wednesday or whatever,
Mhm.
they'll understand why you want them in there. And more important, they understand why it's important that they be in there because
Yeah.
they're valued, right? So
Right.
their presence is valued. So
Mhm.
if they understand that they're valuable to be there live and in person, then they'll figure it out and they'll come once, twice a week. Again, all of that is dependent on the person, and people have
Yeah.
childcare issues, and I get all of it. But again, if they feel like they're important enough that they really need to be there because they're responsible for part of the output, then they'll show up. But if your perspective is, like you mentioned, oh, I give everybody a remote, it'll be fine. The turnover rate is insane on remote people. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they don't, not only say they don't care, but they're not invested, in part because their bodies aren't there. So that to me is for most people, but I will tell you, for young lawyers, to have them be remote day one
Mm.
is an enormous mistake.
Mhm.
Enormous.
Yeah.
Because it's just for all the reasons I mentioned before. I won't kind of beat a dead horse, but it makes zero sense to me.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the biggest thing that everybody really wants to think about when it comes to remote is it's not the silver bullet, meaning like however you treat your team now, it's not just going to suddenly go away. Like your problems aren't going to go away
No.
because they're going to actually increase.
Yeah.
So remote doesn't fix everything that you still haven't fixed
Agreed.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But the other thing with remote, I mean, I think remote is great, but you have to have a system and a process in place to help those people feel like they're part of something.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's a lot of heavy lifting. That's a lot of work that has to be done, but you got to do
I
it.
agree. It's a lot harder to make someone feel important and valued over a remote connection than it is
Yeah,
popping into their office or their cubicle, chatting with them, asking how their day is, telling them how your day went. You know what I mean? Because
right,
it's not just about asking a checklist of questions. Okay, Susie paralegal, now I've kind of asked you how your day was. You now like me. Like, no, it
right.
doesn't work that way, right? That's not how people operate.
Mhm.
So I think that I'm with you. It's a lot harder to build a team over remote than it is in person. Because
Mhm.
if you're the kind of person that people want to be around and you want to be around them, that's easy. Then it's just simple. It's human dynamics.
Right, absolutely. So tell me, like, what's your biggest lesson that you've had so far in your career? Like, if because you're speaking to attorneys, and if you could tell them one thing that you learned, what would it be?
Okay. I think I think there's one that really hits for me is small problems, like insignificant, I'll deal with it tomorrow, can become big problems.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's one thing that I always hammer into young lawyers is that little red line you have to make, or the small phone call to that witness who isn't that important, you gotta call back, call them now, make the change now, file it now, because the problem is that little problem then becomes a big problem, which doesn't mean it's insurmountable, but you only have so much bandwidth, and and the big problems that you didn't see coming are going to show up at your door. And the last thing you want is for that big problem to show up, or that big project, forget problem, that big project to show up. And now you're late on these three little ministerial things you had to do, and they're taking away your focus from that big project, which is the one that actually makes you shine. So, um, again, if it's a small issue, whatever it is, get rid of it, get it off your desk.
Yeah.
That would be my one big takeaway.
Yeah, and what I'll add to it is do what you say you're going to do. I know that's a very common thing that everybody says, but we listen
Yes.
to a lot of client call recordings and prospect call recordings. And one of the biggest client complaints, which many of us know, is um, lack of communication.
Yeah.
And like they're calling for their updates aggressively on a regular basis. I'm not talking about the people that just, might have that habit. I'm talking about the people that we said we're going to call you and we never did. And why didn't you? Because you didn't have an update. Well, the update is you don't have an update. So just call them.
Yeah.
just call them and tell them, because that will say, like you're saying, that right there can be huge. It can like
Yeah.
go right to Google reviews, forget about it,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of hostility between that relationship and mistrust, the
Yep.
whole thing. So do what you say you're going to do. Even if you don't
100%.
have an update, just say, I don't have an update, but I wanted to say hi.
I,
I wanted to let you
I,
know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And picking up, like you just said, picking up the phone and just saying, I don't have anything to report, but and you can follow up on something or whatever it is, and something that may not be the subject of that call, but make them feel like they matter. And you, like you just said, if I say I'm going to call you, then I call you. Maybe it's not at 3 o'clock, but I'm calling, but I'm texting you, hey, I'll call you at 3:30, whatever it is. But people don't want to be ignored, and with good reason. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
how actually I've gotten a fair amount of cases. It's just clients who've left these kind of mega firms because
Mhm.
they never spoke to a lawyer. After a year, they spoke to like 3
Mhm.
case managers, maybe the paralegal if they're lucky, and some other kind of admin folks, but never once even spoke to the attorney about their case.
Yeah.
Unless so it's like, okay, so I'm happy to take you on, and yeah, here's my cell number, and let's talk about it and figure it out.
Right. Yeah. So like the other thing to keep in mind to be careful of is we're all consumers ourselves, right? Right here. And we've had many experiences where businesses have sold us, tried to sell us something, and they give us all kinds of love and promises on the front end. Everything's great and excited and magical. But then once we say yes, everything falls apart. It's not congruent. It's not matched. It doesn't match up with the other side. So just be careful of that whatever you're teaching your salespeople or your intake people to do, and your marketing saying, oh, they're great, whoa, wonderful, wonderful. Just, are we actually carrying the ball across the goal line, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Agreed.
So any last words for everybody?
No, really enjoyed it. I hope people receive some value, some benefit out of our back and forth, and and that's it.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for you? Say, what's your first big goal that you're looking at?
I think the first big goal is a full-time in-person assistant. Right now, everyone's remote, virtual rather.
Mhm.
And so I think that would be number one. And then after that, hiring an attorney, probably, maybe not my level of experience, but a little bit below that, to help just kind of run some cases so that I can
Right.
focus
Yeah.
more on marketing and,
Right.
and higher level tasks.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. Do you want to leave any contact information for anybody to get in touch with you?
Sure. My website is www.galimidilaw, GALIMIDILAW.com. I'm also on Instagram. It's at Galimidi_LAW.
Mm-hmm.
I post videos on there, just tips and ideas and things that come up.
Excellent. That's
Um,
great.
yeah, and office number 786-442-2873 if anybody would like to get in touch.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
All right.
you.
I appreciate it. All right, everybody. So long. Lawyers tell all. We'll see you again real soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.